Hi, Peter Howard, Figure Transformation. What I want to discuss today is kyphosis and kind of what's happening to our bodies in terms of posture and how it's affecting our everyday life and kind of what we can start to do to change it. So, our control system is our hips, depending on how tight we are, and many people are unfortunately tight, myself included, in our hips. It's going to restrict our movement pattern. So if I have a pelvic tilt, and again, I'm kind of rounding, in the neck, and I'm trying to make up for it because our body's always trying to find balance. When I start to squat or I move, I feel just so tight through here because my hips can't get in a good position. So what we first need to start doing is to kind of fix the upper is we got to start fixing the lower. The only thing that I found that is everlasting and can and does move fascia, unlike kind of what a lot of people think, is percussion therapy. Now, what we want to kind of do is attack our glutes and our hips. Now, we might have to attack the front for somebody who's a little bit more with the pelvic tilt, but I guarantee you we're going to find scar tissue and restriction all in through the glutes, basically back into the hips areas. So what we're going to do is kind of like I've showed in some of the other videos, I might kind of lean forward, start kind of loosening. A lot of times we just want to sit there where that tight muscle is. Now what I'm realizing is because our glutes get so tight, then our legs start to get tight and we kind of end up with all the scar tissue on the outside. Again, a lot of us are mistaking kind of scar tissue for bone, unfortunately. Your bone and your femur is kind of relatively deep in there in terms of before it actually, we can feel it. Now again, it is a little bit closer here, but all too often I can take that tissue and kind of pull it away. If I can pull that tissue away from there, I'm not hitting bone. So if you notice, I got a good chunk of meat here that I can pull away. So this is all scar tissue that's developed on me over years. Now each leg is a little bit different. But regardless of what we want to do is we want to start at the hips, because as we open up the hips, now I can start to get better movement through my femurs. And then the other part is going to be kind of loosening up the front here, where our core comes in, and as well as your adductors are kind of coming out and spiraling. And all too often we're not realizing how important the adductors are in terms of everyday movement pattern. So if we got the glutes and the adductors, they're your prime movers and your prime stabilizers when we're moving. Unfortunately, they're becoming too tight and playing a tug of war with each other as we kind of get older, and then we'll have to, use our secondary muscles, our quadriceps, our hamstrings, for basically too much, and that's really what's kind of happening throughout the body. It's your prime movers kind of get too tight, they can't move, restrict our movement pattern, and then our secondaries have to overtake. And once we start to kind of understand that, instead of having to attack all these secondary muscles, we can attack the primary and slowly start to break up the scar tissue. Now, same thing for the kyphosis up here, it's going to be our traps, But it's also going to be my lower traps that get involved, because again, I got the tilt. So, we want to kind of get up into upper traps, kind of through this kind of thoracic area, start to loosen up that tissue. And then we can start to work on kind of opening up that front chest area as well for people with kind of kyphosis or the head coming forward. For every action, we need an equal and opposite reaction. So if I'm too tight back here, and that's again what's happening is we're only attacking one side of the problem in a lot of cases. So not only do I got to loosen here, but I got to open and kind of get more movement to facilitate through the front. But we got to loosen up one before the other. I usually find it easier to loosen the tissue that's not too sensitive, A lot of times when we're going to get a massage or things, we're like, oh, that's tight, work that muscle. A lot of times you can work the opposing muscle and get that tissue to loosen up, because again, whatever the opposite muscle is, that muscle is too tight, which is causing the opposing muscle to work too hard. And we're just kind of not realizing that, not following the fascia lines enough, because the fascia doesn't necessarily stick to the muscle tissue, So we're too targeting kind of certain specific muscles and not understanding, well, I got to make a connection all the way up through my upper body. So hopefully this was helpful for the person with the people with kyphosis, looking to improve their kind of mobility and whatnot. If you follow along in the videos in terms of how I open up the hips and upper body, which I kind of just put out one, I believe, in terms of kind of what happens to our body. You can kind of follow that system, and then I'm going to kind of keep pumping out videos in terms of what I am doing in terms of working the tissue And then hopefully, as time goes on, I'll get some kind of volunteers to work with as well, so I can kind of show this information much better. All right, thank you.